you guys hear me? Welcome to the first ever Mindvalley Kuala Lumpur Meetup. So congratulations on being here.
Thank you for coming. If we have more people over there, you can come in. There's more seats on the side. Yeah, just come on in so that you can have better view of the hall.
And we can also cozy up and share the beanbags.
Yeah, that's how we like it.
So I know some of you would have to brave through the usual KL traffic to be all the way here, but thank you for being on time. We are just about 5 minutes late, but that's quite on time for Malaysian standards, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate all of you for being on time, really.
So this is Garfei and I'm Luzanne, and the question is this: what is this meetup really about? Why are you here? So about 2 months ago, Garfei and I were in LA together with 40 over people from different parts of the world, and we came together to be certified as Mindvalley Tribe Leaders. And as Mindvalley Tribe Leaders, we get to bring Mindvalley content and networks into the community that we're in, right? And so with this, what we did was that we thought, you know what, being Malaysians, we have to bring this back to Malaysia as soon as possible and impact the entire community here. And so the aim of this meetup really is to bring in new ideas, ideas that challenge your status quo, ideas that would question our current education system, ideas that would really elevate where we want to go and what the life that we really want as human beings, and to raise up the whole bar of human consciousness.
With that said, I really want to share with all of you, our goal for this meetup is really to bring in transformational education that you need to succeed in life but were not taught in school, right? Career, passion, purpose, relationship. This is what Mindvalley is all about. We help people through transformational education. And you being here, it's the first step that we're really, really happy to have all of you here today, right? And when both Luzanne and I were thinking and brainstorming on how to organize this first ever KL meetup in our headquarters here in Mindvalley, we had a challenge. If you have been attending meetups in KL, 2016 and 2017, there were many meetups happening, right? From entrepreneurship to productivity to tech to startups, fundraising, you name it. So we had a challenge. How do we make sure that people, when they come here, they want to come back again? And how do we make sure that we deliver amazing content to all of you who come? So what would be interesting is at the end of all our 3 speakers, we will be having a group coaching. So that would be the part where we really want to help you to bring back what you've learned in the next 1.5 hours so that you can actually start to take action to do something in your life. There's only one thing that stands between where you are right now and where you want to be, and that's action. So we really, through today, we really, really want to help you to start to take that action, to take that step forward, and be part of this amazing community of people who learn and grow every single day. And something that we are really excited about for 2018 is that we have trained over 40 tribe leaders around the world. That means you will now be able to attend meetups in different parts of the world when you're not in KL. So in 2018, we are opening more and more meetups around the world. We already have some happening in Amsterdam, in Haiti, in California happening tonight, same time. So it's really, really exciting for us to bring that to our community, right? So without further ado, Luzanne, I'll let you.
So we're going to bring out our very first speaker. Are you guys ready for our first speaker? Yeah?
Sure.
So our very first speaker came all the way from the land down under. He is the CEO and founder of Australia's largest and most disruptive education institution for entrepreneurs called The Entourage. The Entourage currently has about 350,000 members across the globe. Now, Jack Delosa, our first speaker, is an investor. He's also a 2-time best-selling author. And so we want to welcome Jack Delosa. But before that, Jack, I want to share a little fun fact about Jack. Do you guys want to know that? So Jack used to be a rapper, and he used to perform in rap battles to earn extra pocket money. So let's just put our hands together for Australia's #1 rapper, Jack D.
Mindvalley Tribe, how are we doing? Good, I love that energy. You guys are part of history tonight, right? You guys know that Mindvalley have a reach of about 7 million people, and this is their first meetup that they're hosting here in KL for you super lucky people. Who's pumped for tonight? Good, 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 good. Thank you, Luzanne, for that amazing introduction. Yes, I did used to do a little bit of hip-hop type stuff. I know that's completely weird for a small white guy from Australia like myself, but I promise you it was true, and I promise I wasn't all that bad. Guys, I'm a little bit challenged in talking tonight. I've got 20 minutes. Usually when I start talking, I keep talking for about 3 or 4 days, so I'll probably talk relatively fast to try and convey the message as best I can. My outcome in the next 20 minutes, guys, is to ultimately help you redefine your relationship with challenge, right? The topic for tonight is redefining how we set goals and how we make them stick. And so when the guys at Mindvalley spoke to me about this, I really started to ask myself the question, well, when we go in pursuit of our goals, when we actually start stepping out into the real world and taking action towards what it is we want, what is it that prevents us from ultimately accomplishing those goals and ultimately getting there, right? In my view, I think predominantly what prevents people from moving past and navigating periods of adversity is the challenges that we face along the way, right? I hold a fundamental view to be true, and that is that growth and comfort cannot coexist. Right? Growth and comfort cannot coexist. If I was to survey everybody in this room and I was to ask, what are your top 10 personal values, right? What are the top 10 things that you value most? Freedom, success, growth, all of that sort of stuff. I'd estimate that probably 90% of the people in the room would have growth in their top 10 values, right? Personal growth, professional growth, all of that sort of stuff. And if we reflect on, historically, in our own experience, when we've been through challenging circumstances, I think when we reflect on it honestly and objectively, you'd probably agree that the periods of our greatest challenge are the periods of our greatest growth. The periods of our greatest challenge are the periods of our greatest growth, right? When everything's going magnificently, and we all know this to be true, whether it's in business or in your career or in relationships or whatever, when everything's going really, really well, we tend to take it for granted a little bit. We tend to put it in cruise control and enjoy it, right? And as we should. That's not a bad place to come from. But when things start to go the other way, and we start to hit challenges, and we start to hit adversity, and we start to be challenged on every level of our being, we stop and we pause, and we start to ask ourselves questions, and we start to reflect on ourselves, and we start to reflect on what we've done, and we start to reflect on who we're showing up as, we start to reflect on our behavior, right? And so for me, when it comes to achieving goals, it's not, in my view, the hard part isn't setting the goal. Setting the goal is relatively easy. Right? You need a level of congruence and self-awareness. You need to know where you're going. You need to have a vision for your life and all of that sort of stuff. But provided you've done a bit of that work, setting a goal for where you want to go should be relatively easy, and it should be incredibly enjoyable. For me, the question isn't how do you set goals. For me, the question is what do you do when you set out on the journey and you inevitably come across periods of extreme challenge. In business, I don't think we talk about enough. We talk about vision a lot, and I talk about vision a lot, right? Because vision is critically important. It's not about one or the other. But for me, the challenging thing about business, right, where the real crux of the issue lies, is not in creating the dream, but what do you say to yourself and what do you do when you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, the dream has become a nightmare, and it's all now stacked against you. It's in those moments that champions are defined, right? It's in those moments when you're up against it, when you're challenged on every single level, what you choose to say to yourself, what you choose to do, what meaning you choose to associate to it, and subsequently what action you choose to take will ultimately define, in my view, probably everything in your life, right? And so there's an interesting conversation to be had around challenge, right? As I said before, if I was to interview everyone in the room, I reckon growth would be in the top 10 personal values of everybody in the room. So, in my view, given that we know that our greatest periods of growth come from our greatest challenges, and that you probably have personal growth in your top 10 values, then we need to look at the coming of challenge as the universe responding to one of our highest requests, which is the request for growth. Right? There's a really good book. I'm just going to take a little bit of a detour here to sort of elaborate on what I mean by that point. One of my favorite books on innovation is a book called Creativity, Inc. It's by a guy called Ed Catmull, and Ed's the president of Pixar Pictures. He's now the president of Disney as well. He was the president of Pixar when Steve Jobs was involved in Pixar when they were creating Toy Story and revolutionizing animation films. And in it, he says, everyone talks about innovation as this romantic idea. It's almost got these romantic kind of associations. It's like this Hollywood version, and every conference you go to, everyone's talking about innovation and all that stuff. He says, the innovation that we talk about at conferences isn't how I've ever experienced innovation. This is what Ed's saying, right? He's saying, if we're doing a project, any project, be it a movie or anything else at Pixar, if we're doing a project and everything's going smoothly, and everything's going swimmingly, and everything's doing what it should, he said, we drop everything, we step back from the project, and we ask ourselves what we're doing wrong. Right? He said, when we're going through a project and it's recalcitrant, and it's challenging, and it's not quite working, and it's pushing us around a bit, and we're pushing it around a bit, he said, we've learned to view discomfort as a signpost toward innovation. We've learned to view discomfort as a signpost toward innovation. Because innovation is growth, and growth is often uncomfortable, right? Growth and comfort can't coexist. It's similar to challenge. We need to learn to view challenge as a signpost, an inevitable and critical signpost that we are moving toward a higher and greater version of ourselves. That's what challenge is. It doesn't come to leave us defeated. It does come to invite us to reflect. It does come to invite us to pause. It does come to invite us to question ourselves, right? And so the question becomes, how do we find value in adversity? How do we find value in challenge? One of the most powerful exercises that I've ever designed, that I do with myself whenever I've been through an incredibly challenging period, or I do with my members back in Australia, is we teach ourselves to ask ourselves 4 questions, right? And I encourage you, you've all got notepads and computers or phones in the room, please write down these 4 questions. I want you to take these away, and over the next 48 hours, I want you to move through these questions. I want you to try and do it when you take them away. Try and do it in an hour. Don't spend half a day on it, because while a challenge is good to reflect on and get associated with and pick up the wisdom and the gold nuggets that are available from it, it's not good to live in, right? So go through the process so that you can move through it. Don't go through the process so that you can stay stuck in it, right? And do this in a safe place, right? So if you're doing it in the next 48 hours, do it at home. And if you can be, if you can have loved ones in the house or whatever, then that's preferable, right? But I want you all to go through a process, because I want you to experientially reframe what challenge is and what adversity is in your own lives. Because you need to befriend challenge if we're going to push through it. If we want our goals to stick, and if we want to do the things that we want to do, we have to not only get comfortable with challenge, but actually embrace it and deliberately pursue it, right? So the 4 questions are this. Number 1, what is the most challenging period of my life? And it might be a period, it might be an event. What's the most challenging period of my life? Right, and so this is why I say do this at home or when you're surrounded by loved ones, right? Because a lot of us, particularly dreamers, right? People in this room, people that are sort of striving for shit, often you guys swear in KL, right? That's acceptable here. We swear a lot at Mindvalley. I just assumed it was culturally acceptable. That's a compliment. Where was I? Yes. Yeah. So what was the most challenging period of our life? Right? And you really, really, really want to go there. Second question. Why was this period so challenging for me? Because it wasn't the fact that you lost the business. It wasn't the fact that you lost the job. It wasn't the fact that you lost the boyfriend or the girlfriend. It wasn't even the fact that the loved one died. It wasn't the event that was challenging for you. It's what was under the surface of the event for you. So what it meant for you. Was it a loss of significance? Was it a deep loss of connection? Was it a deep loss of love? Was it a gut-wrenching heartache that caused you from going in, from one chapter to the next? Why was it a challenge for you? The third question, if this period happened for a positive reason, what would that be? Or better yet, if this period happened for positive reasons, what would that be? What would they be? And again, here, I want you to go deep, right? So let me give you some examples of the kinds of lessons that challenge and adversity often comes along to invite us to encounter, right? Did I need to learn to love myself more deeply? Did I need to outgrow one chapter and step into the next? Did I need to learn better judgment? Did I need to learn the true value and meaning of integrity? Did I need to learn how to love more wisely? Did I need to build certain capabilities in order to get to where I was going? That I couldn't have gotten to where I was going, or I couldn't have gotten to where I'm still going if I hadn't have learned those lessons. In Sanskrit, there's a word, please write it down, Rashi, R-A-S-H-I, Rashi. And the word Rashi is, it essentially means this, right? And you've probably all been through 1, 2, maybe 3 Rashis in your life. A Rashi is a catastrophic event that causes us to become choiceless in the process of change. I'll say that again. A catastrophic event that causes us to become choiceless in the process of change. Right? And so a few years ago, I went through a very, very, very extreme, about as extreme a challenge as one can in business. Right? Training institution for entrepreneurs in Australia. We went into a regulated environment, essentially started to do business with the government, scaled quite a heavy business unit into that direction. Government made some changes. The changes are going to take effect in 3 months' time, which meant 60% of our revenue would be gone in 3 months' time, which meant we were 3 months away from an $800,000 per month loss. Right? So 3 months away, and then we'll be losing 800 grand every single month. And so talk about a Rashi, right? Something, a catastrophic event that causes you to focus and become really present on what it is you need to do. And it was gut-wrenching. We needed to, our culture at the Entourage is similar to the culture that the amazing people at Mindvalley have here, right? We're a family. We're a team with a family feel. We're super close. We hang out together. It's a tribe. It's so much more than a company. And we needed to get rid of half of our team, right? We needed to lay off 40 people that were family. Right, we needed to do all sorts of things that you never want to have to do to a creation that you've loved and that you've built and that you've injected TLC into for 6 or 7 years, right? In hindsight, what that experience taught me, so I learnt more in that year as an entrepreneur and particularly as a CEO than I did in the previous 10 years of being in business. I learned how to better operationalize. I became more financially focused. And I don't mean financially driven, I mean financially focused, managing the money so that we could scale, right? I became far smarter. It toughened me up a little bit. It helped me develop thicker skin. It made me more compassionate. It made me truly value the loyalty of my people. It made me a better person. It made me a better son. It made me a better brother. It made me, on every single, it evolved me as a soul, right? On every single level, the contribution to my evolution was unlike any other period that I've ever been through. And hear me when I say this. So similar to Vishen and the guys at Mindvalley, we have a huge vision for what we want to achieve. And in hindsight, I could never have operationalized and achieved the vision as to where we want to go if I didn't learn those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lessons as a result of that catastrophic event. And so the way I see it, I'm a highly spiritual person, right? The way I see it is this. You demonstrate that you're going here. And when I say demonstrate, I don't mean talk about it. I mean you demonstrate that you're going here. And the universe goes, okay, you're kind of really committed to this, right? I could see that you're really committed to this. Well, you're not going to get there with the current capabilities, the current level of evolution that you're at now. So here, have this. And it causes you to become choiceless. I had no choice but to become financially smarter. I had no choice but to become stronger. I had no choice but to become more compassionate. I became choiceless in the process of my own evolution so that I could one day better reach my ultimate dream. Right? So number 3, as I said, if this happened for positive reasons, what would they be? And then number 4, and again, I want you to go deep on number 4, is this. How did that period enable you to become? How did that period enable you to become the person you longed to be? And it's very specific wording. The person you longed to be. Okay, you say you want to be a great entrepreneur. Here's how you get there. Okay, you say you want to become a really loving person and be able to contribute to your family or to lives around you. Okay, here's an experience that will help you get there. Right? You say you want to be great at mechanical engineering. Okay, here's some really big problems that will help you get there. Right? As dreamers and people with goals, there's another side to being a dreamer, and that is that we're always comparing ourselves to the person we aren't yet. We're always comparing ourselves or our business to what it isn't yet, or our career to what it isn't yet. We're never smart enough, fast enough, experienced enough, knowledgeable enough. There is somebody that you long to become. And I guarantee you that if you sit down and you conduct this exercise for 60 minutes, you will realize how your challenges weren't obstacles. They were the way. They were the very gifts that you had actually asked for that enabled your growth. And guys, you've nailed relationship with challenge, right? You've nailed it. And go through this exercise over the next 48 hours. When you view your deepest scar as your greatest gift, that's when you know you're there. And then when the next Rashi comes along, do the exercise again. The next challenge comes along, do it again. And continually use challenge for what it's there for. To reflect, to pick up the wisdom that's available to you, and to ultimately carry that forward in order to grow into the best you can possibly be. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jack. Did you guys learn a thing or two from that talk? Let's hear it up for Jack one more time. So, our very next speaker is a homegrown Malaysian entrepreneur. He is none other than Sun Wei, who is the CEO of Art Printing Works, or I think most of us would know as APW. Who here knows where APW is? Yeah, quite a few of us know that. That's where Breakfast Thieves and Pop is located. Now, besides just being a collaborative workspace and the most Instagrammable spot in KL, I think, APW is also a really interesting space where it features pocket parks to really green up the urban area of Bangsar, Kuala Lumpur. So without further ado, I would bring up Soon Wei only after I reveal a fun fact about him. So Soon Wei used to be a stage performer in theatre. And he belongs to a group, a theatre performance group called the Footstool Players. So let's give it up for Soon Wei.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you actually hang out in Bangsar? Right? How many of you have heard of this place called APW? Yeah, okay. And my last question, how many of you have actually been to APW to either attend an event or eat or anything? So tonight's going to be a very different version of APW. You are going to hear a lot about the rushy moments of APW, the building blocks of how the space came together, and more of a personal story of how this entire journey embodied. So if you are ready, do join me as I begin. Our Printing Works is an established printing company that was established in 1952. It belongs to my family. However, their roots actually stems out from Malacca, and their roots started in 1938. So the printing business for us has been around for the last 80 years. I come from a family that has been through about 3-4 generations in the printing business. And at that point in time, I was at a crossroad of my corporate career. I think I once tried to apply to Mindvalley, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so we were that close coming in. So I was at a crossroad of my corporate consulting career, and I had to make a choice of whether I wanted to come back to the family business or not. And the printing business or the printing industry is not a very sexy industry. It's highly manufacturing-based. It's something that I couldn't quite comprehend or understand. But obviously, as the elders, your parents do prompt you and say, why don't you take a look at the business? Try first, see how. Don't worry. We are here to support you. So I grew up with this imagination that it's a great place to be in. And when I came back, when I finally stepped forward and entered the print business, this was the reality that it dawned on me. The company was in a bad debt of 7.5 million ringgit, uncollected. Every print machinery was dilapidated. The entire place had kind of broken down. There was a big low morale situation with the blue-collar staff and the white-collar staff. And I had to make a big choice. I walked around the entire premise, and there were basically warehouses of defunct machines and uncollected papers, and I really had to make a choice. I could do 3 things. First, turn back and go back to my corporate career. Second, join the company and remain status quo. Just follow the vines of how you become a printer and spend 15 years doing that. Or create your own vision, right? Create your own space. So I set a target to give myself 3 to 4 years to do this. And we began the journey. In 1 year, we basically reduced the bad debt of about 50%. So we collected about 3.5 to 4 million ringgit. With that money, I had to decide what to do with it. It didn't quite make sense to invest in print machinery anymore, simply because the cost of machinery was in the tens of millions, and you'll never be able to recover. So what I did was that I bundled all the machineries for the first year and a half, tons of machineries, and we sold off. And as a result, there were basically pocket of warehouses available and totally vacant. I then had to write a story about what I kind of imagined the space to be. And really, it was really a personal response. It was very simple. I was very young. I was coming back to an industry that was very old. I couldn't kind of motivate myself to come to work. How then do I then build a team or create a culture where people would like to join me? So I then, okay, let me reimagine what type of spaces that I would like. And at that point in time, the specialty coffee trend was really picking up. And our family wanted to rent the APW warehouses to a Toyota showroom. Can you imagine if APW became a Toyota showroom? And at that point, it was about ringgit 80 per square foot. And I was like, it doesn't make sense. We're in Bangsa. We should be at least the half of Bangsa village, which was about 10 ringgit at that time. I wanted 5 ringgit. So I'm Chinese, so I wear a Chinaman blood, so I started a craft. So I don't think I'll get 1 ringgit 80 cents in Malaysia. I'll go to Singapore. Because Singapore at 2 Sing dollars times 2, 5 ringgit. So I started shopping for tenants around Singapore. But I didn't have a lot of materials. So I created a mood board, I created visions, and I went to sell. And that's the birth of Pulp, as they were originally from Singapore. But notice the name Pulp. Pulp was a formation of the fact that it had a history of printing and paper together. So paper pulp and coffee pulp. And that began the journey of every restored paste in APW would be named after a printing term. That was the birth of the place. Obviously, when we began this project, there wasn't a lot of funding available. And as a result, I had the biggest issue in my hand was about stakeholders management. How do you convince a typical Hokkien family to say that you want to start out a series of restaurants in a printing factory? The first thing is no, right? So I tried to ask for permission. I never got my permission. So I figured that didn't work, so I started asking for forgiveness. So I started doing things by do first and say sorry later. So one fine day, they went for a nice holiday for a long period of time. I got the demolishers to come in to shift all the machines and cracked open the main office, and we pushed out everything away. So when they came back, obviously, we had a family meeting. And they naturally said to me, why can't you just talk to us? Say it nicely, why do this? I said, I tried, but you don't want to listen. So I have a plan, and this is what I plan to do. And basically, our printing works had the acronym of APW. We wanted to engage a branding agency who would cost us the tens of thousands to basically recreate a name for what we wanted to do. And I didn't have the budget for it. So the agency told me, if you don't change the name, it's highly associated with our printing works, you'll never be able to create a space. I took a call and said, I can't afford to pay you, I'm going to go and stick with the name APW, and I'll come up with the acronym later. So I worked on the vision, and today APW actually stands for a place where people come together, a place where ideas turns into reality, and I started creating moments of depicting the place. So many times over the weekends, I would come into APW and walk around spaces with a wood and steel and different materials, our balls and our drum, and I basically listen to sound. So in theater, it's always about movement, sound, and light, and I bounce ideas and I started writing narratives of how I would imagine the space. I started writing narratives of how a person would respond to the space. And that's when we started creating the vision to become a creative campus, where we wanted to accelerate the creative economy. And we wanted to create these campuses across Southeast Asia. And I'll tell you a little bit how we actually ended up in those premises. What I noticed about in Asia in particular, we were lacking spaces to cultivate this phenomenon. I studied in Australia. Many friends studied abroad, and some studied here. They wanted a place to engage with one another, but it was severely lacking. So I wanted to create a premise to allow this. So what I did at that point in time, when we couldn't even afford air condition in event spaces like this, I just allowed the space to be used for free. And for many, many months, people were just shouting and screaming, can you please put in air condition? Please put in air condition. I knew I had to do it, but I had to wait to the very final point. So when I put it in, they say, see, I told you, you should have listened to my idea, right? That was the issue. And as a result, the structure of the creative campus had to have a string of F&B restaurants. That's why all the restaurants and the bars that you see was formed after a space called paper plates, as in paper and plate making and coming together the size of a paper plate. Our event spaces were bookmarked because we made our mark in printing books, and we wanted every space or every event to be intimate. And then we had the bindery because it was a gathering of people. We also have a co-working facility, which is known as the uppercase, because it means capital letters and something that's going bigger. So after 2.5 to 3 years, in the words of Jack, there were a lot of rushy moments. There were a lot of moments that didn't quite make sense. And this was a breakthrough moment for me. And it wasn't a breakthrough that led me to go up, but it went down. For 2.5 years to 3 years, I was really seeking validation in the work that I was doing. Where everybody was progressing in their careers, doing startups, doing things that were interesting. But here I am cleaning a factory that's full of rubbish, trying to make sense of disjointed spaces coming together, and trying to make meaning of the word a place where. And when I finally resigned and surrendered to the fact that I don't want to seek validation anymore, I wanted to just complete the work that I was going to go through. And at that point in time, I was probably spending about 300 to 400 grand a month just on renovations, signing checks out and getting things in. At that point in time, the economy tanked, the Singapore dollar went up. There were no potential tenants that would come through. I had to venture out further to look for tenants. So what I did is, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to take care of my tenants. So I wanted to ensure that I will provide the environment by creating a green space. I will provide the toilets so that you don't have to focus on those things. And I'll give you the office space. In exchange, the restaurants are made below 1,000 square feet, so about 800 square feet, so it's optimum. So your cost of investment is low, and basically my absolute number will be high. And I wanted the proximity between the restaurant and the audience. I wanted to bring proximity closer to one another. So as I positioned that, then people got really interested. But at that point in time, I didn't have money to buy trees. And I asked the family, can you plant some trees because it's very hot? He said, no, trees very expensive. I said, how is trees expensive? The leaf fall, we have to clean, then we pay the cleaner, it doesn't come, HR problem. So I said, fine, I'll write a paper and I'll seek for a grant fund. So I was very thankful that Khazanah Think City gave me a grant of 200,000 ringgit to plant all the trees around APW. We created a project called Project Pocket Pokok, which is basically pocket parks in the hustling and bustling of cities. So as a private entity, we opened out our space in exchange for this. So obviously, they wanted to bond me, right? So I said, okay, let's do a deal. If I choose to exit the business in the next 10 years, I have to return the 200 grand to you. For me, 200 grand over 10 years was about 20 grand. But I knew that the family would never sell the land, and that kind of gave me working capital. But even when I had a chance to plant the trees, the family disagreed. They said, no, plant in my house better. Put in my house. So in the end, I said, I had to think of a crafty way of how to tell them that it's meaningful. I said, these trees are investment-centric. Because when you buy a tree at about 40 or 400 ringgit, in about 10 years, it will be worth about 4,000. You know, it's a lot of money. And they started counting the number of trees and said, yeah, please plant more. So I really learned the Asian way of what we call stakeholder management, and I started crafting all these things. So very clearly, I've gone through a tough journey on this and not seeking validation. And about last year, there was a major breakthrough in the work that we're doing at APW. The work started to get recognized. I had seen people coming to our space and really enjoying the premises because it's something I could never have imagined. So this was a little fun fact for me. In October last year, the Harvard Graduate School of Design, means the graduating students of the architectural school in Harvard, made a trip to Asia. And when they made their trip to Asia, some local friend pointed them to APW as a restoration place to look at adaptive reuse because that was very big. And 2 China students had come over and they looked at the project and they enjoyed it very much and they wanted to have a word with me. So we played host, we showed them around, we thanked them for their time with us, and I left it at that. In February last year, we got an invitation from the Harvard Asia Business Conference where they wanted to invite myself and the work at APW to Harvard Business School to speak at the Harvard Asia Business Conference. So it's beyond measure simply because I was cleaning rubbish, trying to manage stakeholders, trying to plant trees. But someone had noticed the work that they said this would be very responsible for what's happening in Asian context. So it was my first time to the States, first time making my way to Boston, obviously overly excited because I had always wanted to go back to school. And I entered the room to speak with a panel. On my left, Director of Development of WeWork, valued at $5 billion. On my right, a Japanese a professor who basically sits on boards of companies like Toyota, Toshiba, and the many suits. And here I am was another Asian guy coming through. The only thing I could do is try to look good and say as minimal as I could. And obviously the panel of questions started happening, right? And it was a string about drone flying, 3D printing, and it was a whole different realm because everything's in the US. There's a certain standard that has been passed through, you can push through. Whereas my questions were saying that actually Asia is a very fragmented market. A lot of tech is coming from Bandung, a lot of manufacturing is coming from Vietnam. we have a strong local base in KL, but we don't have the platform to expand. And I kept talking about these things. And I thought I was not making any sense. When I finished, there was a beeline of Asian students who were lining up to have a word with me, because all these students from China, Taipei, Hong Kong, and Myanmar were going back to their countries. And they had started to realize that they too have issues with stakeholder management, engaging governments, engaging families. And that gave me my breakthrough about creating campuses across Southeast Asia. So we have now taken the APW concept out of Malaysia. I spend about 15% of my time in KL now, and the rest of my time in Australia, Thailand, and Singapore. And I think if I had given up in the early days, I would not have landed here. So if someone had to ask me, how do you keep going? How do you keep showing up? I think my parting note would be this. For me, I always say this, I say, keep exploring your personal vision with curiosity. I think you really, really have to be very curious about what you want to do and be really, really interested about pursuing it. And I think that personal vision was really mine, and I really embarked and embodied that. How are we doing for time? Can still go on? Okay. How much time do we have left? 4 minutes? 4 minutes. So let me try to take another time to share another Rashi moment. Another interesting fact was that the fact that we didn't have the budget to buy tiles for the recreation of spaces. So I was taking a drive along a lot of these old tile suppliers, and I realized that a lot of tile suppliers was selling via wholesalers, and it was always price sensitive. So I knocked on every prime tile supplier and say, why don't you give me some tiles? I'll redesign tiles for you in the best way. So I had a mandate or a mission about recreating the best looking toilets in Malaysia, because toilets in Malaysia had a huge hygiene issue. And I wanted to create spaces like that. And to me, it was very rational. It was a smaller space within my compound. It was the most personal space for people to take pictures. And I felt that was things that they would do and share. So I tried to create interesting moments. And that's why the toilets in APW are a bit crafty. If you've been to Upper Case, it has a certain look. If you've been to Bookmark, it has a certain look. Obviously, when I did the tiles, when we had the board meeting with the family, they say, actually, my toilet also broken. Can you send some tiles over? I'll give you my size. So day in and day out, it was very humbling. There were a lot of times where you really had to practice the art of listening before you can even comment. And then as a young person, I was also very vocal. And it really humbled me to learn about the art of listening, really providing context to what we were doing. Yeah. So I think I'll end here because I think it's about succinct, but thank you for listening. Happy to have a chat later if anyone wants to know further, and catch you guys for coffee at APW. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sun Wei. I think we can all appreciate APW a little more from tonight, right? I didn't know that there was so much that was going on to create that beautiful space that we have in APW now. So thank you, Sun Wei, for bringing that all the way to Bangsa, Kuala Lumpur. So for our very next speaker is none other than the Jim Quick, super brain coach. He has also trained Fortune 500 CEOs, top celebrities, and the entire cast of the X-Men movie. So please put your hands together for Jim Quick.
Is it on? All right, thank you. It's a real honor to be here. My fun fact was I was actually barred from a casino after playing blackjack. So we're putting a little card game on afterwards outside, if you like. How many people went through Superbrain? Very, very cool. This is the reason why I'm so honored to be here is because of that program with you, I get hundreds, and I say literally hundreds of stories every single week because people that you helped get this program out to people, their lives are easier, their lives are better. And the quest of it for me was to be able to partner with you guys was because who knows if somebody listens to that, a child somewhere, and they listen to this super brain, they unlock this amazing potential, and they become the next Malala, or they become the next Elon Musk, and they move civilization, they move our humanity forward in a way, integrate it, make it more unified, and help with this transformation. So you never know where this ripple goes. And so I'm really honored to be able to be here. When we're talking about goals, I'm just gonna give you 3 keys to achieve anything you want. You might wanna write those down. The fastest way possible. And for me, you know, I talk rather quickly, and I want to give you things you could use when you leave here today. I also want to be able to hopefully go through and give you like the 5 elements of what I feel like goals, what makes goals attractive. Instead of just setting SMART goals, like how do you set goals that really pull you through so it's not forced upon you? It's not something you have to do. Because a lot of people, it comes down to your habits, right? First you create your habits, and then your habits create you. But a lot of people in their languaging, they tell you where the resistance are. You know, have you ever set a goal? And how many people here have set a goal before and not achieved it? Raise your hand, right? All of us. How many people have ever set a goal and you sabotage or you procrastinate, right? You say, I'm going to meditate each day, or I'm going to work out, I am going to journal, and you sabotage. And you wonder why that is. And so I filter everything through the brain. You know, I believe that our brain influences our behavior, our whole life, and I want to talk about a little bit about the neuroscience for achieving your goals. But even in the language of people, they say things like when they have to work out or they have to meditate, they literally use those words, like, you know, oh, I got to work out, or I got to meditate, I got to journal today. And you change one little letter, like the O, into an E, and it changes, right? When you say, instead of got to do, you get to do. You know, you get to journal today. You get to move your body today. You get to be with your kids or pick them up. You get to do this. So a lot of accelerated learning really comes to, it's not only a set of skills and techniques and strategies, it's an attitude, right? The things that you learn the fastest, you probably didn't even have a coherent strategy. You were just, like, you were bewildered, right? You were fascinated and you were excited about it. So I believe all learning comes down to your state. You know, all learning is state dependent. That information, as you know, combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. So stand up real quick and just find a partner close to you, or just find somebody you don't know, ideally, and I'll prove this to you. Just go around, find somebody, introduce yourself. Introduce yourself and shh, find your partner. And when you hear me go shh, go shh. Repeat after me, shh. And so I'm just going to I believe that our bodies are an antenna, and we can absorb information, but a lot of us have very poor physiology. That you're not logical creatures, you're biological creatures. And when you move your bodies in certain ways, you become a tuning fork, and you could absorb information faster, and that will help you to achieve your goals faster. And so what I want you to do is we're going to play a quick game. It's going to kind of change the way you think a little bit, so then you can be receptive to new ways of maybe goal setting. So what we're going to do is can I have a partner? Does anyone need a partner? Does anyone need a partner? Raise your hand. Can you come up here, please? Woohoo. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to count 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. You're going to go 1, 2, 3. We're just going to keep on going, cycling through. So I go 1, 3, 2. You got it? Do that with your partners now. Do it now. Stay here. No, stay here. Okay, stop. Shh. Now what we're going to do is we're going to play a brain teaser here. We're going to play a brain teaser, and we're going to replace the 1 with a clap. All right, you're going to substitute the 1 with the clap. Watch this, watch this. I will demonstrate, okay? Watch this. 3, 2, 3. Got it? Go. Okay. Shh. Shh. Quiet. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to change it up. We are going to, we do the physical movement. Let's do a sound of an animal, okay? So yeah, the number 2, so you're going to still use the clap for number 1. Number 2 is going to be the sound of an animal. So I'm going to go. Meow. Okay, you said meow, okay? And then so I say 3. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Meow.
3. Meow.
3. All right, go, go, go. Good. Okay. Shh. Stop. Shh. All right. How was that? That looked good. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to replace the 3, and we're going to replace the 3 and just kind of shake around like this. You're going to do like twist. All right. Everyone do this now. All right. Move your body. Good. All right. So we're going to do this. I'm going to start. You start. Meow. All right, go, go, go. All right, stop, stop, stop. We're good, we're good. All right, give your partner a hug, have a seat. Now, how many people feel more energy? Raise your hand. How many people feel like your mind is a little bit more alert? Raise your hand. How many people feel like also your mind is online, like it's more present? It's not thinking of the future or the past, it's actually right here. Raise your hand. Right? And that's a big part of learning and achieving your goals, is being here. A lot of people don't achieve their goals because they're so distracted in the future or in the past. And being present, the art of a good memory is the art of attention. The art of memory is the art of attention. And that attention muscle can be trained. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, with digital distraction and our smart devices, and we're getting these dopamine fixes, and it's rewiring our brain to just be kind of spastic. Does that make sense? Kind of like this monkey mind. And so part of reaching your goals is having that focus. And one of the challenges, I think, is people have too many goals. Right? There are too many goals, and how can you put certain time and treasure and talent into achieving all this, because you're split in different areas. And so I know this because my goal growing up is I wanted to make my family proud. My father immigrated from Indonesia, Jakarta. My mother immigrated from China to the United States. I was the firstborn in the United States, and I just wanted to make my family proud and show them that, you know, their hard work was valuable, to be a good role model for my younger brother, my younger sister. But at the age of 5, some of you know I had a head injury, and I had a brain damage, and I had learning difficulties. And I had very bad focus, a very bad memory, and teachers would repeat themselves over and over and over again. And after 5 or 6 times, I would lie. I would say I understand when I didn't really understand. I would have this imposter syndrome at the age of like 6, 7, and 8, right? And at the age of 9, one of my teachers, I overheard her talking, and she pointed at me, thinking I was not paying attention or not smart enough to comprehend. To another adult, she said, "That's the boy with the broken brain," right? And at that age, you're very impressionable, right? And so my challenge is I had these learning difficulties all through school. And how I got on this path, though, how I turned it around, and this has direct relationship to goal setting, is I set this goal as I wanted to get straight A's in school, which was completely different because I was the part of the curve that made the other part of the curve possible, right? And so I had this difficulty, and I thought it was so unfair. I was working so much harder than everybody else and getting less results, right? Maybe some of you could identify with this. And when I was lucky enough to get into university, and as a freshman, I wanted a fresh start. And I took all these classes thinking I could prove to everybody that I could do this, and I did worse. And I was ready to quit school because I didn't want to waste the money of going through all that, money that I didn't have. My family certainly didn't have it. And a friend said, "Hey, why don't you take a break, take a breath, and I'm going home this weekend to visit my family. Why don't you come with me and get some perspective?" And now this word perspective, I think, is one of the keys to reaching your goals. It's one of the keys to solving problems. It's one of the keys to innovation. And how many people feel like if you're stuck in some area, it helps to have a little space from that issue, right? When you're going after your goals. And so we visit his family, and the family is pretty well off, beautiful home near the water, and the father walks me around his property and asks me before dinner, asks me a very simple question, a question you would ask an 18-year-old kid, says, how's school? And honestly, like, even talking about it, it's so funny how memories work. My throat's like in my chest, right? And I was like, I break down because I don't know how to tell my folks that I'm gonna quit and, out of school. And I disappoint them, and I tell them my whole story. And I find that a lot of us tell stories, and that our life is a reflection of the scripts that we constantly tell ourselves over and over again, right? And so I'm saying, oh, I have these learning disabilities, I had this brain injury, and I'm not good at school, I'm not smart, right? And so the challenge is when you say that out loud, or you say it internally, your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. So you have to be extremely diligent in terms of what you're saying to yourself, right? Especially even talking to kids, right? Because your external words become their internal words. Does that make sense? Because your unconscious mind is this 5-year-old kid, and it's this genius. It can learn amazing things, but we're constantly pushing it down, and we're squelching it with this critic. And so he's walking me around, and he's like, I was like, I'm quitting school. And then he stopped. And the other thing he taught me, he was kind of like my Yoda or my Obi-Wan, if you will. He said, why are you in school? So outside of perspective, I found that questions is another tool that we could consciously use to be able to move us closer to our goals or pull us further away from our real intention, our destiny, right? The destination or the destiny of what we're supposed to be, what we're meant to be. And he asked me, why are you in school? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? What do you want to share, right? And I didn't honestly have an answer because I've never asked that question before. And I've learned since then that questions are the answer. That if you want to achieve anything great, you have to ask questions that allow that possibility, that opens up that architecture of your mind that makes it possible, right? People, entrepreneurs here in Mindvalley, you're asking different questions than other people ask, and so you're getting different results than other people get, right? And so I didn't have an answer, but I go through the exercise, and I tell him some of my goals, and he says, stop. And he pulls out from his back pocket a journal, and he tears out a couple of sheets of paper, and he's like, write it down. And that's another third principle to goal setting, right? You want to be able to write it down. I find that in my study of genius, and I'm not talking about just academic IQ genius, people who excel in any area, that a lot of them keep journals. Raise your hand if you keep a journal. Because that area, this feedback loop is very important, that reflection. Because you wonder why, is it because they're geniuses that they take notes and journal? Or is it because they're constantly taking notes that they become geniuses? Right? So write down those goals, because the magic of taking an idea here that's invisible and writing it down here, that's the first step in like creating something. You've actually done something physical. You've created something physical on the outside that wasn't there before that started here. Just like everything in this room, everything in this city, in this country, once started in someone's mind, right? And so he made me write it down, and after I'm done, I have a list of things that I want to be, do, have, share. It was like a bucket list, right? And when I was done, I fold up the sheets of paper to put in my pocket, and he grabs it out of my hand. And he looks at all of them. And I'm freaking out, honestly. Even thinking about it, my memories go back to that place. I'm that insecure kid. And I just wrote down all my dreams and fantasies and desires in life, never shared those things with anybody, my friends, my family, anybody. And all of a sudden, this stranger is obviously very successful. I was looking at them. And I don't know how much time goes by, but he looks at me. And he says, Jim, you are this close to everything on that list. And I'm thinking, no way. Give me 10 lifetimes, I'm not going to crack that list. And he goes like this, and he walks over to me, and he goes like this, to the side of my head. Do you see that? And so what is he saying to me? Yeah, it's my mind, it's my brain, that this is the key, this is the bridge that's going to get me to where I want to go. And he takes me into a room of his home that I've never seen before. We walk into this room, and it's wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-floor, covered in books. Can you imagine? Like, I've never seen a library in someone's home before, and he starts grabbing books. Now, here's the thing. I've never read a book cover to cover up to this point, and I'm a very bad reader. You know, it took me an extra 3 or 4 years to learn how to read because I have my brain injury, and I'm freaking out because, like, It's like walking into a room full of snakes for people who are afraid of snakes. But what makes it really bad is this guy starts grabbing snakes off the shelf and starts handing them to me, right? And I'm looking at all these snakes, and I'm looking at all these titles, and there are these biographies of incredible men and women in history. And these very early personal growth books, right? I mean the classics, guys, like Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, Dale Carnegie, right? Psycho-Cybernetics. And he says, Jim, I want you to read one book a week. Read one of these books a week. And I'm just like, have you not been, I go back to my story, right? About how we do it with our goals also. We set these goals or these New Year's resolutions, and I start thinking, oh, have you not heard, I'm so bad at school, I'm a horrible reader, and I have this brain injury, and I have this identity. And here's the thing, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you argue for your limits, they're yours, right? And so I'm arguing for my limitations, and a very smart man, he's like, and I'm telling him, I have so much schoolwork. I have midterms. I can't read all these books. And he looks right at me and he says, Jim, he said, don't let school get in the way of your education. And I didn't realize at the time that was a Mark Twain quote, but it still hit me hard. And yet I couldn't commit to reading one book a week because the way my parents raised me is if I commit to something, I'm going to do it, right? Because that's my integrity. And it's my word, be impeccable with your word, right? And so I was like, that's great, and I still can't read a book a week. And then this man, he reaches into his pocket, and he takes out my bucket list. And he starts reading every single one of my dreams out loud. And I can't tell you, even talking about it to this day, how that made me feel. To hear my deepest, imagine your deepest desires, fantasies, wishes, dreams in your life being said by somebody you just met, right? Incanted out into the universe, right? And so it messes with my mind and my heart, something fierce. And I, honestly, a lot of those things that were on that list were things I wanted to do for my family. Things they could never afford, ever afford to do for themselves or would ever do for themselves. So with that leverage and that motivation, I agree to read one book a week. You get that? Because this is what I learned from goal setting. Yes, you need perspective, and yes, you need to ask the right questions, and yes, you need to be able to also have the beliefs and monitor your self-talk, but you also need motivation. You need leverage, right? Because we are emotional creatures. And because we can't reach that goal if we don't have a clear reason why that's important to us. And I think one of the biggest reasons we procrastinate is we set a goal, but we don't act. That there's a success formula. It's just 3 steps. I call it H cubed. It goes from your head to your heart to your hands. Now, if you've heard me say this on YouTube or some video before, there's a difference because you're here because you're not dabblers, right? Because a lot of things in the personal development field, in personal development and high performance, you hear over and over again, and you get numb to it. But it doesn't, the fundamentals, the masters in life, they get really good at the basics. They get really, really good, and they never get bored with it, right? Because it always comes down to these basic principles. And so when I say this to you, I'm saying that head, heart, hands, that you could put things in your head. You could affirm things, you could talk things, you could visualize your goals in your head. You could do all of that, but if you're not acting with your hands, then there's something missing. And I think it's the second H, which is the heart. What does the heart do? What does it symbolize? Yeah, feelings. It symbolizes what? Emotions. It's the energy emotions. Remember, because where your energy, that's your energy, right? It's the fuel that moves the car, that we act on. And so one of the things is really getting to your why. So he had my why in his hands, right? It was my family and all the things I want to do for my family. So I agree to go back and read one book a week. Fast forward, I'm at home, like back at school, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I have a pile of books I have to read for midterms and a pile of books I promised to read that I want to read, and I can't do it. So what do? I don't eat, I don't sleep, I don't work out, I don't spend time with friends, I don't do anything other than live in the library and just study, right? And that's not very sustainable. I end up passing out one night, I fell down a flight of stairs, I woke up 2 days later after hitting my head in the hospital, and at this point, I'm like a mess. I was down to 117 pounds. I had lost all this weight. I thought I died, and it was the darkest time of my life. But when I woke up, a different part of me woke up because I was so set on my goals. Because when you go, how many people have gone through such dire situations or challenges that get you crystal clear, more crystal clear on what's most important to you in life? Raise your hand. Because as Jack was talking about, with challenge comes change. What people don't know is you could go through this trauma, and you could go through this challenge, you could go through this struggle, and we've all heard of post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people don't hear about the other part of it, post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is where you wouldn't change. Remember those questions that Jack was talking about? Like what's your biggest challenge, and what was the benefit, what was the gift that came out of it, and how does it make you who you were meant to be, and these things? I would say to you is where is that gift? Because a lot of people have gone, how many of you have gone through challenges so deeply that you wouldn't wish it upon anybody, but also you wouldn't change that thing for you? Because it gave you a strength, it gave you a meaning, it gave you a focus, it gave you your superpowers, right? And so I went through that, and I wanted to solve this riddle about how I could fix my brain, right? I had this thing where the nurse came in when I had this thought and brought a mug of tea, and it had Albert Einstein on there, right, the genius, and had said this quote, which is directly related to goal setting, is the same level of thinking that's created your problem won't solve your problem, right? Think about it. The problems in your life, with the same level of thinking that's created your situation is not going to solve it. And it made me think about my problem. It's like I'm a really slow learner. I was like, how do I think differently about it? Maybe I could learn how to learn. What we teach in Superbrain, meta-learning, learning how to learn. And that's what put me on this path. The reason I stay on this path, going back to goals, is I started teaching people. Because when you get a life-transforming event in your life, you can't help but help other people. Because I was like, why aren't we taught this back in school? Because I changed my life. I started studying adult learning theory and speed reading and memory, neuroscience, positive psychology, and I transformed my life. And when I started helping other people, one of my very first students, she was a freshman, she read 30 books in 30 days. How many people have a goal of reading more, finishing more books? And so I was like blown away. I wanted to know, not going back to goals, because her goal was to read 30 books in 30 days. I wanted to know not how she did it. I know how she did it. I want to know why. I'm very interested in what motivates. Think about the word motivation. What's your motive for taking action? And I found out that her mother was dying of terminal cancer. And the book she was reading, she was given 60 days, 2 months to live. The books she was reading were books to save her mom's life. Now, is that motivation, yes or yes? Was she absolutely clear on her goal, yes or yes? Was she motivated and have leverage to be able to act on that, yes or yes? And did she have a clear action plan? Like, my GPA was down through the roof, but if you write this down, GPA, that's your formula. G is your goal. You set your goal in your head. The P is the purpose. That's the H, which is the heart. That's the why that you want it, right? Start with why. And then the A is action. That's you acting on the goal. And that comes down to the strategy, right? The habits that you're forming there. But here's the thing. If you're not acting, here are just a really few quick tips, and I'll end with this, on how to set the goal properly. How many people, raise your hand if you're familiar with a SMART goal? What does the S stand for? You want it to be specific. What's the M stand for? Measurable. What does the A stand for? Actionable. Good. What does the R stand for? Realistic. And finally, the T stands for what? Time or time bound, right? Now, how motivating is that? Not very. It's very left brain, right? So I want you to remember these heart goals. Heart. H stands for healthy. Is the goal healthy? Meaning, is it serving the ecology of your life? And a lot of you are very holistic, right? So you know that everything is related to something else. The E is, and I would go normally deeper into this, the E stands for enduring. Enduring. Is your goal set up in a way that when you're going through the difficult times, because you will always have it, see, the biggest problem you have is this is the biggest problem most people have, is that they think they shouldn't have any problems, right? That when you're failing, when we're going through this process and we're failing, failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Do you get that? And so when you're going through the difficulty, is your goal enduring? Is it going to get you the grit and the perseverance to be able to go and do the thing? The A in heart stands for alluring. Alluring. Now, that's an interesting word, right? Alluring, because it's attractive. It's something that pulls you towards the goal. Are your goals alluring? Like, and this is practical, because when you're writing down your goals, ask yourself, how can I make this even more alluring? So you're drawn to it as opposed to being pushed. Like if there's a rope right here or a wire, you can't push a rope, but you could pull a rope. That's a lot with your dreams and how your attractors work. The R in heart is relevant. Relevant. I feel like a lot of people self-sabotage because a lot of the goals they're setting are not relevant to a problem, a pending problem, or of deep value that they have. Right? Because a lot of people don't learn in school what is cosine, sine, tangent, what does that have to do relevant to their life? Right? So relevancy is key. And finally, the T in heart stands for truth. Truth. And what do I mean by that? I feel, in my experience working with high performers, elite mental performers, that when they set goals, they're setting goals, but they're not their goals. They're somebody else's goals. Does that make sense? Like maybe it's goals that they picked up unconsciously from their family or their parents or their spouse or somebody on their team, whatever that was, but it's not their truth. I find that in order to be happy, see, here's the thing. 3 tips for overcoming procrastination, because I just want to leave this with you. Is this okay? Yes or yes? Yes. I see we have, I think we have 4 minutes left, they're saying. The key here is this. If you're sabotaging or if you're procrastinating, there's something that's missing, right? And I would say here's some really quick tips to overcome procrastination of your goals, if you're putting things off. Number 1, I would say what you need to do, the first thing you need to do is you need to be able to procrastinate. And you're like, what do you do? What do you mean? The best way to procrastinate, to get better procrastination, is just to apply the problem. And you know this because often if you apply the problem to the problem, it gets better. If you're so good at putting things off, then put off putting things off, right? After that, I would say the next thing to do is what you want to do is you want to be able to break it down, Most people procrastinate because it's this big thing that they need to do in terms of a goal, but you need to break it down into little parts, because the reason why is that because success breeds success. You've all heard that. But the reason why it does neurologically is because when you have a win, you get a dopamine flood through your reward system of your nervous system. And that's the system that drives learning and motivation. And you love those dopamine fixes. So when you set a goal and you break it down into little parts and you achieve one of those, you get this dopamine fix and you get an addiction. You get a drive to be able to do it again. Right? That's why success breeds success. So break it down. A third way of getting over procrastination is this. Start somewhere. Just start somewhere. Meaning this. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. And we use it in memory training. In Europe, there was this psychologist, and she noticed that when she was at this cafe, that the wait staff would remember all of the customer's orders by memory. How many people have had a waiter or waitress like this? And she realized that once the food was delivered, they would forget it. And the Zeigarnik effect, which was her last name, basically says the mind doesn't like open loops. That if you open up a loop, you'll stay with it, even maybe obsess about it, until that loop is closed. So start somewhere, anywhere. And then the last thing I would say when you are procrastinating is this, the last tip. A lot of people tend to beat themselves up when they let themselves down. Raise your hand if you tend to do this, beat yourself up, and you're hard on yourself. Oh my goodness, I should have worked out. I didn't do it. I didn't have time to do this meditation. I promised myself I would do it. But all the studies and the research done in self-compassion says the opposite. That if you want to want to follow through on a regular basis, you don't beat yourself up. You become kind with yourself. You love yourself. Because when you are compassionate with yourself and say, you know what, I'm only human. I had a really bad day. This kind of thing happened, and it's not all the time. But forgive yourself. You're more likely to follow through in the future. Does that make sense? And it's the opposite is not apply, because a lot of people tend to martyr themselves and beat themselves up. But here's the thing. Self-love and self-care is not selfish, right? We'll go back to the T in heart. The T stands for your truth, right? I find that if you really want to be fulfilled and reach your goals, you reach your dreams, you need 2 things. You need to know who you are. And that's why I love this community so much. I love what Vishen is doing here, leading like this community, because it's so much is based on self-awareness, really understanding who you are, right? Because that's your superpower, because nobody has your strength, your talent, your unique ability. And so have the curiosity to know yourself. That's part one. But once you have the curiosity and you do the work, the deep work, and you get these programs, you go through the quest, and you find out who you really are, then also the second part, once you know yourself, is have the courage to be yourself. Is that different? Yes or yes? Because once you do this all self-awareness training and you know more about who you are and what's important to you, your identity, your beliefs, your mission, your vision, it takes courage to actually be that person, doesn't it? But here's the thing. The world only changes when we do those two things, right? Because otherwise we put up this image in front of us that we're pretending. We put on this mask. But we can only impact the world. Like, you wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in growing and giving, right? You're this grow giver. You grow more so you have more to be able to give. But you can't do that if you don't have the courage to actually be yourself. And all I'm saying is all it takes is one step. Because you might not see it there, because one step doesn't make a big difference. But over the course of days or weeks or months, it changes your destination. It changes your destiny. And the world deserves more of us to be able to show up. Thank you very much.
Wow. Wasn't that inspiring and amazing? Yeah? So what does the H stand for? What is E? What is E? And A? R? And the T. Amazing.
Great job. All of you are really, really paying attention. Can we first give a huge, huge, huge round of applause to all three speakers today? We all know they have given their all within the time frame that they have. They really have what they want to share. And I believe that all of you have really gotten a lot out of this. So as I've mentioned in the beginning today, it's really not only about the three speakers. They are great, they are amazing. But today it's a lot about you. See, if you get knowledge but doesn't take action, basically your knowledge go to waste, right? So what we really want to do today is really kind of create a space, about in the next 5 to 10 minutes, to really give you that space to kind of, look back with what has happened in the past 1 hour, what the speakers have shared with you, and really reflect with the people here. And I think Jack, Sunwei, and Jim have already talked about this. One thing that they really love about this community is how all of us are learning and sharing as a community, right? So I want to help to facilitate this. Being the MCTs of Mindvalley, we really want to help to facilitate this. So what I want you to do right now, in the next 15, 20 seconds, look around you, just try to get into a group of 5 to 6 people. Let's go, let's go. Come on. 5 to 6 people, really quick. This is going to be really quick.
Does everyone have a group?
Rajvin, you can join this group. Yeah, she can join. You can have 7, it's okay. All right, cool. So, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. Perfect. So now that you're in your group, I just want you to kind of look and answer this first question. What was your one biggest takeaway today? Spend 20 seconds, think about this question, and what I want you to do then is to share with your group. What was your one biggest takeaway today? Let's go. 2 minutes. All right, wrap up, wrap up. Wrap up. All right, cool. So, who would like to share what is the one biggest takeaway today? Yes.
Got a mic for you.
Okay.
Please introduce your name
Okay.
first.
So I'm Glory Jane, so from Malacca. Okay. I really told my boss this afternoon, boss, can I go out earlier today? Right after the meeting. Okay. So my biggest takeaway for today is that about the challenges, because we really love comfort. So we really don't like discomfort. So this is really, the talk tonight really gave me a very good reframing on embracing challenges as a signpost towards success. So yeah, so it really, it's like an eye-opening statement for me.
Thank
Okay.
you, Glory. Let's move on to this side of the room. Who would like to share? What was your one biggest takeaway? Oh, come on, guys, you have to be competitive. Yes.
Biggest takeaway is
What is your name?
Hi, my name is Alessandra. The biggest takeaway for today is actually understanding why our goal settings fail. Like sometimes we don't reach our goals, but we beat ourselves up. But yeah, that's my one takeaway for today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we will then move on to the next question.
So the next question is, what is one thing you would do differently today towards achieving your goal? Yeah, so what is one thing you would do differently today towards achieving your goal? So take about 4 to 5 minutes again, think about it, and then share within your group.
All right, 1 more minute left. Wrap up. All right, start wrapping up. Wrap up, wrap up. All right, so I'll start from this side this time. Who would like to share what's one thing that they would do differently? Yes, Lorita.
Hello, my name is Loretta. Actually, what really caught my attention was these two words, redefining relationship with the goals. Like, it's not a kind of item around my life, but it's kind of human being, the goals. So maybe I don't need so many goals. So to defining this relationship, so that's what one thing I will actually going out from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. All right, one more from this side. Anyone? Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Olga. Okay, so for me today, the takeaway for the answer to this question, what would I do differently from today onwards, is to really start somewhere and to take small baby steps towards the things that I've been carrying around in my head that I want to do and I want to achieve for already, I think, 2 years by now. Is going to be going into third one in 2018. So I just had this very clear thought in my head. Hey, stop carrying it around. Just start with small baby steps. And you will see that it will definitely take you somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga.
Hi everyone.
Your name is?
My name is Elvina, and I'm so nervous now. So the one.
Can we give a round of applause to Elvina?
Thank you. So the one thing I will do differently from now on is to share, because I used to think that the things that I have is not good enough, but I want to share with you guys here, you know, like you can work towards liberation of your goals, and all of you, you made it here somehow. Today, here is a destination. If you can make it here, you can make it wherever you want to go. Yeah.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all of you for sharing. I know some of you, you want to answer the same question. I would invite you to kind of stay after this to kind of, talk to more people. Because as I mentioned, I cannot emphasize this enough. One of the biggest things in Mindvalley is community. And we always believe that every single person has something to share. It's not only the speaker, it's all of you. Like what Elvina said, you have something to share. Just share it with people around you. That's the reason why we open up this space. That's the reason why we created this meetup. It's for all of you to be able to share, to learn from each other. All right? So before we end, I just really want to say thanks to all our speakers who came all the way from Australia, dropping by here in Sunway, Jack and Jim. They are here except for Jack, so if you want to talk to them after this, you can. I also want to thank all of you for being here. Give yourself a round of applause. You deserve it. And I also like to thank our Mindvalley tribe member. How many of you here are part of our tribe membership? Quite a handful. I really, really appreciate all of you for being here. So for all of you who don't know, like you're wondering what is this tribe membership. So a tribe membership is actually one of our flagship program where people actually get curated content from us in Mindvalley. Every month they'll be given trainings on different topics in different areas of life. Career, relationship. We interview people like Peter Diamandis, Steve Kotler, Eric at Meets, people like that to really teach them and provide them with new learning content. So for all of you who are not a member yet, you can talk to me or Luzanne if you want to. Or actually, since the person is here, you should talk to Jason. So Jason heads the membership team. So if you want, you can talk to him. But I'm not going to tell you too much here. I mean, I'm not here to sell you anything. So before we end, surprise, surprise, for all of you Mindvalley Tribe member here, we would like to invite you for a fireside chat with Jim, hosted by Vision tomorrow. So the reason why this is last minute is because this is actually a session that we are hosting for our internal Mindvalley team member. But because we honor you for being here today, and we honor you for being part of our tribe, you are invited to be here tomorrow 6:30 to 7:30 in the same hall. So Jim and Vision will be doing a fireside chat to kind of, talk probably in detail about certain things that Jim has to share. So tribe members, you are all invited. If you're interested, talk to me or Luzanne. We'll just sign you up. You can come here tomorrow straight. So right in the beginning, we talk about this meetup. We talk about the purpose of the meetup that we are organizing, and the meetup that's happening around the world. So it is at this time also I would love to invite you to our Mindvalley Kuala Lumpur meetup. The next one happening on the 27th of February, 2018, happening in the same hall at the same time. And now you'll be wondering what would be the topic. So this time we're going to talk about productivity. We're going to talk about achieving peak performance by improving your mental well-being. This is something that we think is important. Just like goal setting, productivity has been talked about quite a bit. Time management, managing your time, productivity, efficiency and whatnot, different tools, softwares, whatever that is. But how many of us really think about improving our internal well-being, our body, in order to achieve peak performance? Okay? So the purpose of this is really to help you to achieve peak performance by actually improving yourself first. So the lineup of speakers will be announced. Again, for all of you here who attended this meetup today, within the next 48 hours, you'll receive a registration link to sign up with a 50% discount code. So instead of paying $10 for coming like today, you'll be only paying $5. And let me emphasize this again, it's really because we honor all of you and we want all of you to be in this room and learn together. But a little caveat, I think, we might need to limit because looking at today, we might probably either need more chairs and beanbags or we need to limit the tickets. We'll need to talk to Vision about this. So all of you, tribe members, I just want to summarize. Tribe members, fireside chat with Jim Quick is happening tomorrow. You are invited 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. For every one of you else who's here who's not a tribe member, you will receive a registration link with a discount code for the next meetup that will be happening on the 27th of February 2018. So with that, I would really love to thank all of you for being here, for being part of us, for joining us in our first ever Mindvalley Kuala Lumpur meetup in the headquarters. And when you leave, Martha and Zenas, perfect. So we would really appreciate, and Ostea, if you could actually help us to fill up a feedback form. So this feedback form is very important to me personally because it really helps us to really look at what are the things that we should improve on, what are the things that we did really well today, and what are the other recommendations that you would have. So take 3